Um, thanks, Melissa. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Melissa, do you have a flag for us? You don't have to. It's not necessary, but I know Evelyn liked doing
I do. Let me think. Go
Great. I pledge allegiance
to
to
the
the
flag
to the flag
of the
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, indivisible with liberty and justice for all. Great. Melissa, can you do roll call, please?
I will. Commissioner Cabreros,
Present.
Commissioner Davis,
Present.
Commissioner Federer,
Present.
Commissioner Marshall,
Present.
Commissioner Sipkins,
Present.
Commissioner Thigpen,
Present.
Commissioner Wolfer,
Present.
sorry, Commissioner Newby just joining him now. Wolfer, Vice Chair Robin,
Yes, present.
Chair Soto,
Here, present.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Present.
Commissioner Newby. Newby, I'm sorry, I believe you're on mute. Can you unmute?
Got that. Present.
Perfect.
Great. Wonderful. Next is the acceptance of the agenda. The Measure J Commission will discuss the order of the agenda and may amend the order, add items, and may remove item from the agenda for discussion. So does anybody have any agenda items? I see Councilmember Bernstein is on, so thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you, Councilmember, want to kind of give a few words, but I'm, if you kind of have a time crunch or anything, happy to put you in at any specific spot.
I don't have a time crunch, but yeah, I just want to welcome all the new commissioners who, I guess I know most of you, or not all of you. For those of you who don't know, I was on the Measure J Commission until last year. And one of the issues, and this also came up during this year during our Measure J joint meeting, was the importance of having council interaction with the commission. And so I did promise to come. I know I didn't give any notice, but I am available, and I'm telling that to the commissioner, to the chair, Soto, and Vice Chair Robin, if there's anything comes up. For those of you who watched the State of the City the other night, you will see that Measure J played a very important role in almost everybody's presentations. And it has really become integral to our city, both in terms of the budget and in terms of the projects that we're seeing. For those of you who don't know, it's now I think it's over about 175 million has been generated through Measure J since its inception. And we have had previous discussions at council about looking at different bond options it's not my dog. We've had
sorry if you're not talking, or if you have a bet, can you put yourself on mute? Great, thank you. Great.
So this came up at council during the spring or summer, I think. And so they're looking for the big projects like the library and the fire station, and whether there's I know that Measure J has been putting money aside, but whether there's an option to do a bond measure that would basically raise all the money at once, and Measure J would sort of pay the mortgage, which is sort of what's in Measure J for the downtown now. Which would make things a lot easier because you sort of have a set amount, and that's just, and then somebody else has to deal with it, and you can focus on the other Measure J projects you want to work on. I did want to mention, it's important that we highlight to the community all the Measure J projects that are coming to completion or starting. We actually did have this month, and they didn't do an event, but we're still working on it with the school, at their wellness centers and gardens that started. And obviously next month, as I'm sure you know, the Mizell Kitchen groundbreaking will happen. And so there's a number of projects that are going on. And I would encourage people to keep promoting it, because as we sometimes forget what Measure J contributes to the community, and it's quite extensive. So that's it. I know council did talk about setting priorities in terms of our allocations, in terms of community initiated projects, in terms of parks, and I would just keep that in mind. Things are changing rapidly, as I've now learned from the other side, with direction from council and costs and new expenses. But Measure J is sort of a really key role in all of this. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, and I'm interested to listen. And again, to Chair Soto, I'm available whenever you need.
Thank you so much. Okay. We do need a motion to accept the agenda as is. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to accept.
Thank you, Vice Chair Robin. I think I saw your hand, Commissioner Sipkins. Can I take you as a second?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. We have a first and a motion and a second. All in favor of accepting the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Next we have public comment. So this time,
Chair Soto, will we do a roll call for it?
do we need a roll call for acceptance of the agenda?
Yes.
A roll call vote? Oh, okay, sure, absolutely. Whatever you say.
All right, let's see. Commissioner Cabreros?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Federer?
Aye.
Commissioner Marshall?
Aye.
Commissioner Sipkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Thigpen?
Aye.
Commissioner Wolfer?
Aye.
Vice Chair Robin?
Aye.
I apologize. Commissioner Hopkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Newby?
Aye.
And Chair Soto.
Yes, aye.
Motion carries.
Great.
There you go.
Next we have public comment. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Measure J Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. And although the Commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, we generally cannot take any action on items that are not listed on the posted agenda. We have 3 minutes for each speaker. Do we have any public comments this evening, Melissa?
None.
None. Okay. And in case we have anyone actually watching on the YouTube, which would be lovely, but just for the record, with the new Zoom setup, if anyone does want to join on our Zoom call, you do have to kind of pre-register or pre-sign in with Melissa, and so you just send her a note saying that you plan on joining. So that is a little bit different in terms of giving public comments from previous months. And so I just do want to note that in case there's anyone watching who wanted to give public comment, didn't know how to get in, you just have to kind of flag your desired attendance
We did have one that contacted.
That being said, we only have a few more months of Zoom, so
Yes.
this will just be for really just 2 more months. Great. Was there a question or an additional comment based off of that? No. Okay. So just a quick comments from me. So we have like a full attendance today, which is really exciting. And I want to apologize to my fellow commissioners from last month. I didn't give a chance to allow everyone to introduce themselves. I got to be in the interview, so I heard a little bit from each of you, but my fellow commissioners didn't, and Vice Chair Robin flagged that to me. So I was hoping we can go around real quick. And let's start with the new commissioners and then returning commissioners if we'll introduce ourselves afterward. But, just kind of think quick 10, 15-second summary of you, kind of your resident experience here in Palm Springs, and then, kind of why you chose Measure J. So we'll just do it like popcorn style. And let's start with Commissioner Sipkins. Can you start us off?
My name is Peter Sipkins. I currently am the chair of 1PS. I have been for 2 or 3 years. I lived in Palm Springs as a permanent resident for about 8 or 9 years. My parents bought a home here in 1976, and I've been visiting Palm Springs with my children since then. And I heard about Measure J from former Commissioner Sid Craig and from Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein, and they prodded me into applying, and I'm glad that I did. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Caballeros, can you introduce yourself for us?
Hi, I'm Shara Cabros, and I work for the Palm Springs Unified School District. I'm the school psychologist at Palm Springs High. I've lived in Palm Springs since 2004, and I moved from Seattle, so I'm Seattle at heart, but Palm Springs desert rat now, pretty much. I was interested in Measure J because, especially after COVID, I realized, we've lived here a long time, and I needed to get more involved in the community. And I feel like because I work with a lot of students in our community, that I could advocate for some of their needs. So that's kind of why I decided to get involved.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. Commissioner Newby.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jack Newby. I've been coming to Palm Springs since the mid-1970s. I've been a resident here for over 20 years. I currently work in Palm Desert as the executive director of the Jocelyn Center, which is a senior center similar to Mizell. I worked for Mizell Center for over 10 years, Desert AIDS Project, and have been in the nonprofit sector for more than half of my life. Since Measure J passed, I've always been interested in it, and while working with Mizell, even applied for a few of the community projects. And so I have really been interested in what Measure J has been able to do and contribute to the city. And so I'm very happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. Great. Commissioner Thigpen?
I'm going to keep it quick because my fur babies are barking. But I was born and raised in the Valley in Palm Springs. I am from the Desert Highland Estates community. I am a community member. I worked in the real estate and also hospitality background, and also was interested in Measure J once it passed, and was just looking for an opportunity to serve my community, and I'm interested in looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. Great. Commissioner Davis?
Hi, I'm Andrea Davis, and I moved to the Valley in 2019. And probably like many of the others, was looking for an opportunity to get more involved. And Measure J, I was drawn to the broad scope and the impact of the funds. And so I also thought it would be a wonderful way to just learn a lot more about the community. And my day job, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur most of my career, and now coaching small business owners and around strategy and helping them really grow and accelerate their business.
Great, thanks for joining us. Commissioner Wolfer.
Thank you. My name is Lauren Wolfer. I grew up in the Coachella Valley, lived in Palm Springs for about all of my adult life. I work as a program director at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. So similar to Commissioner Newby, I became particularly interested in the Measure J Commission through applying for a community initiated project. With my work with the Cultural Center, we oversee the farmers market. That's actually kind of where I started. We work with a lot of community partners. We use a lot of city infrastructure. We have, our Movies in the Park series in the downtown park, which is Measure J funded. And, I think I'm particularly invested in the idea of the community initiated project and helping kind of people bring their ideas forward through to the city through this commission work. So I am very excited to be here. Again, as a Palm Springs resident, I've really seen all the amazing things that Measure J has done for the city.
Great. Thanks for joining us. Commissioner Hopkins.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Cliff Hopkins, and I have owned a home here in Indian Canyons since it's been about 11 years in total. About 5 years ago, I left my former full-time residence in San Francisco and made Palm Springs my full-time residency, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm passionate about giving back to my local community. Over the last couple of years, I joined the ICNO Board of Directors, and one of the things that I do as a board member is represent our neighborhood community at 1PS. So it's been great to meet Peter Simpkins, who's here at 1PS, and others there. And I was specifically interested in Measure J because, having lived in Palm Springs for a while now, I was aware of the broad impact and the very exciting projects that it is helping to fund here in the city. And I attended the State of the City presentation on Tuesday. And like Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein said at the top of this meeting, everyone who spoke really highlighted Measure J and really the projects that are coming to life because of that funding. And it's just heartwarming to see. And I'm excited to join and help play my part in stewarding this forward.
Great. I think that's all of our newer commissioners. Let's just give an opportunity for returning ones to introduce themselves. Commissioner Marshall, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your long history at Measure J?
Well, this is my second go around. Actually, was on the original Measure J and serving 6 years, and it took a 3-year break. It's exciting to be here, and I agree. It's fun to see what Measure J can do. I think one of our goals is to make sure it goes in perpetuity and doesn't have a sunset.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Federer?
Gosh, well, I have been here over 56 years, and I did a lot of years in Palm Springs Unified. I work for Cal State University part-time now. And Measure J, I was really mentored by a person in the community. And I have found it to be a really, really important commission. And I agree with Mr. Bernstein. We need to continue it. It provides great service that doesn't come out of the general budget. And I welcome all the new members. It's a learning curve, but I think we have great support through the city that help us understand what we're doing with the money. So that's all I can say.
That's a great point. Vice Chair Robin.
Hi, Brian Robin. I've been in Palm Springs full-time for around 7 years, moving here from New York. And I'm on my final, I think this is my final year number 5 with the commission. And what initially interested me in applying was in a lot of ways, the natural relationship between what Measure J does for its purpose and the things that I did in my professional career before moving here, which was in large commercial real estate projects. So the impact that smart capital can have and yet the difficulty of defining it and putting it to work. That overarching framework of my old job ties into all the good things that Measure J can and does do, and I try to help bring that kind of perspective to the choices that we make in our recommendations to City Council.
Great. Thank you so much for that. There's so much good experience here in this group. It's pretty incredible. I'll just give my quick spiel. So Naomi Soto, I joined same time as Vice Chair Robin. So yeah, I think this is our last year. And I've been chair for, this is my second year now. A little bit about me. I'm the programs director for the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America. I'm working for their St. Louis office. So I do a lot of work in the Midwest, but I'm a remote employee here in Palm Springs. And I have a long experience in public health, a lot of experience around social determinants of health, which is a lot around neighborhood and city design and how it contributes to the ability, the access of someone to be able to live healthy, meaningful lives, and making sure that the healthy choices are the easy choices that we're able to make. So a lot of that is access to parks, access to sidewalks, access to safe public spaces. And so really excited to bring my professional experience into that. Personally, I have two small kids, and so that has really changed how I experience Palm Springs in the last few years. It's fascinating most days. I have been in the desert since 2011 now. So I've been here for a bit. But I just kind of want to just say thank you to everyone who applied, interviewed, and is now kind of committing to joining. I think collectively we bring really great experience in terms of the communities you serve, our personal and professional experience collectively. The goal of this group is to really ensure that Measure J funds are being used smart and effectively throughout the community. And as Pro Tem Bernstein, I'm so sorry, I kept calling you council member. Pro Tem Bernstein mentioned the Measure J is really instrumental in a lot of important work that's happening across the city. And we're really fortunate to have it and make sure that we're communicating that effectively to our constituents and community members across the city. So that being said, let's dive into our agenda. It's short and sweet. Hopefully we'll able to kind of get through it all, maybe even finish a little bit early. But with that, I will pass it over to Chris. Talk to us a little bit about the budget, please.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. Oh, that wasn't it. That was not it. There you go. Everybody see?
Yep.
Okay, so last month we went over the budget pretty extensively. I won't do that again. We went over the unaudited fiscal year for 22-23, and we won't do that again until we get our audit back and I make some changes for whatever the auditors find. So usually from here on out, I kind of concentrate on the year-to-date number and just go over that. It's a little bit quicker presentation. So, but anybody can ask me any questions at any time. I also want to welcome all the new members. It was good to hear from all of you and your introductions. And good to see Mayor Pro Tem on. And I also want to introduce Lori. She's our interim public works director. So she's got some projects that are assigned to her that she may be able to give some insight to later on. But with that, I'm going to dive into the financials. So we'll start with the year-to-date sales tax, which is 1.48 million. And I do apologize because I had a bad number in what you were sent out. What you were sent out was 1.54 million. So I updated the number to be 1.487 million. We are down a little bit on sales tax compared to last year, but it's not much. And it's same throughout the city. And the sales tax that goes into the general fund, we're down a little bit, but it's not considerable. We're down also on the city's TOT tax. So some of our taxes are down, but we're looking into the future. It looks like some of that's going to begin to increase. So good to see that happen. And as most of you know, the first half of the year is pretty slow. We get a lot of our revenue in the second half of the year. So January through June is when we really make our budget or break our budget, and how good the tourism industry is in the spring. So once we get to January through June, you'll see these numbers hopefully increase to be somewhere around $2.5 million a month or greater. And then that's when we know really how we're going to do against our budget when we get to March, April, and May. We've had a little bit of spending through the first quarter. It's usually, again, very slow. We've only spent a few $1,000s of our $9 million budget on street repairs. Community-initiated projects, we've only spent about $34,000. That's going to increase significantly. This is our annual airport reserve that we set aside. Just a reminder that any sales tax that is paid on aviation fuel has to go to airport-specific projects. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in our project update. This is our debt service for the downtown revitalization. And what happens is the reason why it's 783 is that we make transfers once every quarter, so 4 transfers to our debt service fund to pay the debt service. So at the end of the year, this amount will equal our $3.1 million. So we just make quarterly transfers every quarter to the debt service fund. On our downtown maintenance, landscaping, and security, we spent about $130,000 in the first quarter. A lot of this money is security that we pay for downtown. And just a reminder to the council or to the commission as well, that the last commission voted to phase this out over the next couple of years. So when we get to our fiscal year 26 25, 26 budget, this will be zero. And then we have about $600,000 in spending on capital projects so far. So again, we're slow in this first quarter, slow in the second quarter. We should be ramping up to know how we're going to do against our budget in the next, in the last 6 months of the year. Quickly, I'll just kind of show where we've spent some of our money and what projects they're on. This recreational LED lighting, this is LED lighting that's going into our ballparks at all of our parks. This project is really underway significantly. So this spend should increase over the next few months as they complete that project. The next significant spend is in our Arnaco track sewer. And don't ask me to explain it because I'm not sure. And Joelle's not here to help me. So I know it's almost done, though. That's all I know on that. And then just a typical, there's a $200,000 airport reserve set aside. So that's the major spending. Again, pretty slow. We've got a little bit of spend on our community initiated projects. I don't have it allocated out because it's in one lump sum, and it takes me a little bit to figure that out. And I didn't have time, but I will make sure I do that for our next meetings. I do know that the drainage at the Boys and Girls Club is completed. We just don't have the final invoice yet. So, but I do know that is completed, and there's a nice Measure J sign up. So when you pass the Boys and Girls Club, you can take a look at the nice Measure J sign that's up there promoting our Measure J sales tax. So with that, I will end the budget and financial presentation, but more than happy to take any questions about anything financial related to Measure J. And even in between meetings, you can always contact Melissa and I by email or by phone and ask us any questions if you have questions about Measure J that's financially related. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Chris, this is Peter Sipkins. I have a quick question.
Sure.
Why have prior Measure J commissions decided to phase out the downtown landscaping and security portion of the budget?
Naomi, Chair Soto, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. So previous Measure J commissions, the memberships that I've been a part of, have really felt strongly that Measure J should be used for capital projects. Things that are longstanding and really veer away from any staff or labor costs. And that staff and labor costs should be coming out of the general fund. So not that it's not an important expense, that it just didn't feel appropriate coming out of the Measure J funds. And so it had kind of been on there for a while. And for a long time, we thought downtown maintenance was just kind of a misconception. I think it was just was a budget line item that we didn't explore fully for a while. And so many of us had thought downtown maintenance was just maintenance costs. And then once we asked Chris to look into it a little bit further, we realized how much of that budget line was actually for labor. And so when we realized that, there was a request to council to transition, to phase that out of Measure J to the general fund.
Thank you for the answer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Chris. It's Cliff Hopkins. I just have two brief questions. The first one is, could you tell me a little bit more about the 200,000 for the airport reserve? That's number one. And then number two, the 4 schools that got the wellness centers and gardens funding, how did we pick the 4 schools, or the previous commission picked the 4 schools? And is there a plan to provide these things, wellness centers and gardens, at the other schools in Palm Springs in the future?
Take the first one first. So on the airport reserve, there was a ruling by the FAA back in 2017. Actually, it took effect in 17. It's a ruling prior years to that, that the FAA mandated that any sales tax that that was paid on aviation fuel had to be set aside for airport projects. So back way before my time, the finance director and the city manager had to submit a process into the FAA and accept the FAA ruling. So ever since the 2017 inaction, the Measure J Commission has been setting aside 200,000. Now the sales tax is only on local sales taxes. So any local sales tax that was passed after 2012 must set aside taxes on aviation fuel for airport projects.
I have a quick follow-up question before we dive into the Palm Springs Unified Wellness Centers, Chris. And I know we talked about this last month, but if you can just kind of remind the commission and myself, but can you speak to like when we're going to examine if that 200K is like, you know, a true number, or if it needs to be upped, or, you know, is actually more aggressive than it needs to be, or like what's the process we're thinking on making sure that that number is more of a vetted number?
So the process that was put in place back in 17 by the finance director and the city manager at that time was to they knew their who they paid for fuel for the aviation fuel, and so every month they were supposed to look into it and take the actual payments to those or actual payments to the fuel providers, and figure out what actual sales tax was paid. Well, that process really never took off the ground, and it kind of got lost in the last few years. So what we plan to do, and this is a pretty big project, and it's going to take a lot of staff time to figure this out, and it's on the list, but not necessarily, we don't have a plan to enact it just yet. That is, we're going to do sort of a similar process. Through our tax consultants, we can figure out who pays sales tax on aviation fuel and how much that is, or approximately how much that is. But we're going to have to go back a few years and figure this out. So, and try to get to see whether this $200,000 is a really actual amount, if it's more or if it's less. But we want to do that sort of what we're going to call an audit. And it is going to happen probably, we're going to probably start it this year at some point when we get caught up on some of our other audits. But yeah, you're correct, Chair Soto. We do need to go in and actually figure out, is this a good number? Is it not enough? Or is it too much?
And sorry, like, and I understand this is a big thing, but like, is this like a 2-month project, an 8-month project? Like, what is this something we should anticipate by June? Like, what is kind of your like gut reaction?
I don't know if I can answer that, because I don't know how. I'll be able to answer it when we start digging into it. I'll be able to give you an idea of how long it'll take. It's really it's really about how much information our tax consultants can give us and how far back they can go. And once I know that, the information could be readily available. It may not be available, or they may be only able to go back a few years. So I haven't really dug into it too much with them. But yeah, that once I understand how much information we can get and the detail behind that information, I'll be able to answer that question probably a little better.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could have it by June. It's kind of my initial reaction. I have a feeling it's not enough, but that's just me speculating.
Yeah, it's hard to say. And if it's not enough, we'll have to dig into our pot and add to it. If it's too much, we'll just take it away from future reserve.
Okay, great. Commissioner Butter. Wait, actually, is this about the airport? Because if not, there was a second question by Commissioner Hopkins that we didn't get to.
It's not.
Okay.
So I'll address that.
Yeah, the wellness centers, please.
Yeah, Commissioner Hopkins' question about the wellness center. So it looks like one wellness center is completed and they've got 2 more to do. And they've got schools selected for the gardens. Now, I'll have to do some research, Commissioner Hopkins, because I don't know if they identified the schools that they want to do in their application to Measure J or not. They did submit, this was a community initiated project, and so they did have to fill out an application. I'm not sure whether they identified the schools beforehand or if that's something that they did afterward. But I can go back and take a look at their application and let you know. I believe we did leave it up to the foundation to identify the schools that they wanted to do. I just don't know if that was during the application process or if that was done afterward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll chime in a little bit on that. And then Commissioner Footer, you might have some additional memory on it too.
I just would like a lot more information. I happen to be in 3 of the schools that you mentioned last month, and Shara probably can address this. Every school has a counselor now. I assume that person is paid by Palm Springs Unified, and children are to go there when they're really having serious problems. It's my understanding this is not for everyday behavior control. But at the 3 schools where I went, which is Finchie, Kauai, Della Lindley, and where was the other one? Those are the schools you mentioned, Chris, that were to have these things. And when I asked the principal how their wellness garden was going, it was like I came from Mars. And this is a foundation-initiated project, correct? And the checks were written to the foundation. And I assume they will pay that money out as the project goes. But I just personally would like to have more information, a lot more. Maybe Ms. Goodman can come and speak to us about how that is acting, because the one principal talked about her counseling room, and the others knew nothing about wellness gardens, absolutely nothing. So, I think we need to just kind of stay on top of it. It may be slowly moving. And the other thing I want to ask, Chris, I want you to clarify this. When we paid the maintenance downtown, right, the concern was about paying employees, but is there not a contract with the city and that's going to end, and then we're still going to pay until that ends? Am I clear on that, or am I not?
There is a contract with the city. We just elected as to just phase it out over 2 years to not put as much pressure on the general fund when we were doing the budget process. So I didn't think it coincided with the end of the contract. I just think we just decided it was a 2-year phase out.
Okay, and is that for security also?
Yes, it's for everything. So we will not be paying for any of the landscaping, any of the maintenance, or any of the security after 2025.
Okay, all right.
And then let me just add on to the wellness center. So they have the Cielo Vista Charter Wellness Center is complete. They did send us photos. They've got 2 more in the pipeline, which is the Kauai Elementary Center and the Vista Del Monte Elementary Center. So those 2 haven't started yet. We did hear from Ellen. We have been communicating with her, so that's good. She did also identify 2 schools for the school gardens, and one is the Cielo Vista Charter, and then Palm Springs High School.
Okay.
So those are on the list for gardens. Ellen did ask if she wanted us to come to the Measure J Commission in the future to speak. I decided I would leave that up to the commission to decide. So if you all want her to do that, I'll be more than happy to extend the invitation and let her come and speak. But they do have a path. And just to give everybody on the commission a little comfort, whenever we cut checks to the foundations or to other entities to perform their own project, like the Mizell Center, our city attorney drew up an agreement that both the city and the entity has to sign. And part of that agreement, we do have the ability to go in and I don't know if it's a true audit, but to be sure the work was done properly. So that agreement gives us the ability to go in and sort of audit the work and to be sure that it was done properly. So, I would hope that we wouldn't have to act on that. And it looks like the Unified Foundation does have a good plan to go forward. We just want them to get the money spent and get everything in place.
Yeah, and I don't believe the schools were identified at the time of their application. It was more about the vision of that space. And then kind of once they were granted, they identified site selection and kind of planned that all out. But it was it was executed by the Palm Springs Unified Foundation, and it wasn't kind of done by city staff. So we don't. That's part of the reason we also don't have all the details of how the schools were chosen, kind of how they were designed and things like that, because it was a community initiated project from an outside organization that was granted.
Chair,
But
if I can just answer.
Yeah, Mayor Pro-Tem.
So I have corresponded with Ellen. So also Catherine Finchie is slated to have one through Measure J.
Right.
Raymond Cree and Palm Springs High School are funding them outside of Measure J. But due to the nature of the wellness centers, where they have to make sure there's accessibility and quietness and space available, and they want the right kind of space, they did not identify them, but then each project becomes a sort of in-depth study about the school and how it will work. So I think ideally they want to have them at all the schools, but they can't always start them right away. So and I have some pictures I can share if I'm allowed to. This is their first.
I'll stop sharing my screen, Mayor Pro Tem.
I just put it in the chat. That is the one from Cielo Vista. You can see it from start to finish, and they were planning to have there's a mixture of counseling, relaxation, sensory things there. So they were planning to have a Measure J and council event there, which I think they're still going to do. They actually can't really do it when the children are there. So but then you could at least all see it.
Yeah, thanks. Commissioner Cabreros.
Yeah, I did want to say the same thing that Jeffrey was saying. I know that the school's idea is to have a wellness center at every school. So at Palm Springs High, our wellness center is not quite up and going, and it's partially because they're renovating Desert Learning Academy. And so there's some movement of students from place to place, but we do have a garden club, and I haven't actually gone out to the garden, but I'll tell you, we have some of our students with emotional disturbances at Palm Springs High, and they love to go out to the garden. And so I just haven't gone out there this year, but they do like to go out there to calm down and commune with nature. Although one of them did say they saw a coyote out around there. And like I said, the garden club is meeting. Mr. Cross has a garden club, so I'm not sure if Measure J helped fund that through the foundation or not, but it is active. And I have had kids say they went out there. They said it was a lot of work, so some of them didn't want to pursue. But
they did want to try and be at the farmer's market. Find out if they become a certified farmer.
Great.
So
thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions, budget questions for Chris? This is a good segue because our next item is community initiated projects. So if not, okay. So let's chat a little bit about community initiated projects, and then I will open it up. I know Vice Chair Robin had some few thoughts. So I just wanted to give some context as to the different iterations of community initiated projects. If you look like way back when, they were also called hotspots. So they've kind of existed in different forms, but ultimately they were designed as a way to give the commission a small budget out of the overall Measure J budget to be able to execute on kind of smaller community needs. And what we did a few years ago was we put out an application. It was Linda, I think it was like a survey. I think it was a Google form where people were able to kind of say what organization, if they were an organization, if they were a private, just like a regular resident, which is absolutely welcome, and to say what they thought the community initiated project idea. From that, we got, goodness, I think it was like 50 or 60 applications total. And then there was a process of kind of scoring them, analyzing them, and then putting the ones that we thought were most viable and most ready. So there's kind of a multi-layer process with those projects. So it was ones that some were outside organizations, which is in some way an easier lift for us because it's a matter of, once it's approved through legal, you just write them a check and they execute on the idea. That was true of the Mizell Center, of Palm Springs Unified Foundation. Other projects have to go kind of through a vetting process with our engineering team or public works. And so it is, for full transparency, it takes a few years to actually review those applications, vet them, see what the true cost is, and then move forward with actually completing them. So it's been a few years, and we do have extra room in the budget. And so I know Vice Chair Robin wanted us to have a conversation as to when do we kind of solicit a new pool of applications. So I'll pass it over to you, Vice Chair Robin, if you want to add anything of the history or kind of how you're thinking around community initiated projects this year.
Great, thank you. A little bit more perspective, or maybe more personal perspective, but it's certainly shared by the members of the commission that have been on through that prior cycle with community initiated projects. The solicitation process, I wasn't involved in it. It was clear. It's hard. It was hard, imperfect. We had we had critics, so to speak, but the intention was absolutely to bring an opportunity to people off the commission and off of city council and off of city staff to give others in the community an opportunity to tap into funds that are available. And as important as anything else, for them to come up with the idea, because we can't necessarily top down drive what's best for everyone. So with that as background, and as Chair Soto described, the number of years to cycle through, we're now looking at a great opportunity in the next 2 years of $8 million of set-asides that we know it's going to take a long time to solicit, designate, and implement. So the perspective I bring to this is we should be spending this coming year putting that money, trying to put that money to work through the lens of the citizens. And I think as much as anyone, if not more than anyone, Peter Sipkins has the best purview of how to get that message out and complete a loop where others in the neighborhoods can learn what's available for them and take the lead on our behalf of designating what those best ideas are.
Yeah, thank you. And so I think the question for the commission is just kind of immediate reactions. I think there's also the question of projects that weren't funded our last cycle. If they are kind of like the first pool of projects that we consider, do we ask them to reapply if we do decide to reopen applications? And then the general community invitations to be able to submit their own ideas. So with that, I will open it up to the group to see if anyone has any kind of immediate reactions or ideas. Commissioner Sipkins.
I want to respond to Brian. Brian, at 1 PS every month over the last 6 to 8 months, we've been having a 15-minute presentation on various topics by people throughout the community about interest that they have that they want to impart to the rest of the neighborhoods. And I think that it might make a lot of sense for yourself, perhaps, and Naomi, to come to one of our 1 PS meetings in the next few months and talk about what Measure J means, how important it is to the neighborhoods, and to educate the 100 or so representatives and alternates who are there about the community initiated projects and how the neighborhoods could be involved in presenting some requests to with respect to those projects. So I'll be in touch with you both. And fortunately, Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein has been at every one of our meetings, and I think that he might have some thoughts about this as well.
Thank you. Yes. One of the things I would say, in that when we went through the process last time, is that you do get a lot of submissions, and a lot of them are not actually really vetted, or they don't quite know how much they cost. So we had ones we approved, which sounded wonderful, and then only to find out they cost 10 times what the group estimated. So, and I think there's still a backlog with engineering. When they did the hotspots, there was an efficiency to it because it was all really had to do a lot with sidewalks and very specific things, so that engineering could address them en masse, as opposed to 25 different projects. So as you look at community initiated projects, there was a value to having a certain umbrella that the commission would decide. If you want them all to be parks projects, for example, and we're going into a parks master plan, it would sort of play in well, versus some of the things that were totally different. If you look at the ones that are being done, like the wellness centers in Mizell Kitchen, that did not really involve city staff. So that's why some of them are getting done faster. No offense to city staff, but they're fixing roads that are washed away and things like that. So there's quite extensive ones. So I would sort of look at how you approach this as to, rather than just opening it up to have 1 PS come up with a lot of ideas that they then get frustrated that aren't happening, is to sort of the commission to come up with more of a framework, because you also will have at 1 PS a lot of people who have submitted the last round and they haven't happened. I do think it is very important to talk about what has been done with Measure J with 1 PS, because and I would strongly support having a presentation, and I would be there too, to talk to them about what Measure J has done, what is planned, how much money it generates. And Chris can probably add in some input as to the fact that the majority of the revenue comes from visitors, and the majority of expenses goes towards mostly residents now. So that would be my only advice, just not to come up with a million different ones and sort of have them vetted or categoried, and understand that engineering, just the process of pricing everything out and estimating, could take, years.
Yeah. I have a comment about the practicality from a commissioner's point of view. Yes, Naomi.
I was just going to let Commissioner Davis go. She's just been waiting for a bit, if that's okay.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get just listening to this brief discussion. Would it make sense to have a small task force or subgroup of this committee to come back to the committee with some recommendations what that process could look like?
Yeah,
before
we did that last
time.
Anything.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a subcommittee last time that did everything from reviewing the old applications. We decided to forgo a paper application, go with an online application. We worked with at the time we had 2 kind of liaisons from engineering. One person from engineering was there with us to kind of like help us think through. And then that subcommittee also kind of did like an initial review of the applications once they went in. there, and just a couple of comments around from those conversations, and also Commissioner or Mayor Pro Tem. Joel did say that they're ramping up staffing, and so by the time that this next round of applications would be kind of essentially next spring completed, that he'd be a lot more confident as to the capacity of engineering to be able to handle it next summer or next fall to kind of start that initial review. But I do think some initial some structure could benefit, right? So, and this is something that we could explore too in terms of looking at the old applications. There was categories like, is this a parks projects? Is this like a sidewalk thing? Is this like an outside organization asking around? I think we had one around like a bus stop from DAP, right? So there are different things that came to us, but I think there is a question of how much do we want things to be fully vetted and fully baked when they come to Measure J versus how much do we want to welcome parents, speaking of parents, as my kid tries to get outside the door, to say, I have a concern about this public space, right? And I'm not an engineer and I'm not, a project manager at a construction site, but I know that this sidewalk isn't safe, right? And so we want to kind of balance the need for, really great ideas and opportunities to fix our public spaces in Palm Springs, and also making it sustainable for staff so that these projects can actually be completed, within 2 to 3 years of their submission, which, for full transparency, that's like a pretty, that's an ambitious timeline, 2 to 3 years. You'll see how long things can sometimes take. So yeah, but I think a subcommittee to kind of flesh out a lot of details would be important. Commissioner Federer.
Well, I agree with that, and I've thought about that all summer, because when we met with the city, we talked about and used the term buckets, because at the end, council has to approve what we recommend or not approve. And sometimes we waste a lot of everybody's time on things that are not in council's thinking. And that doesn't mean that small individual projects are not important. But just to talk about the process, I think we need to look at that application again, and there is a process. The project must meet the criteria that we've set within that application, and then each member independently scores them. That's how we did it. We don't get together and talk about them. You look at them individually. Does this meet the criteria? Do you think this is important? And then those are all gathered together and scored. And the ones that I think came in at 9 and 8, am I right, Mr. Bernstein? The highest numbers were the ones we settled on. So there is a big process involved in reading the application, thinking about it individually, and then submitting our own scorecards to our gal who totals all that. And then we see what are the important ones that the commission has felt. So it is a process that involves each of us independently. And we don't want, anybody thinking, oh, this is a little community thing. No. Each of us makes our own opinion and submits them according to the criteria and how we feel about them. And Ms. Soto, I think we should take a look at that application. That came from the first Major J commission, and we sort of upgraded it when we made the subcommittee, right? And we might need to look at that again, and also as the discussion with council, not go off on a tangent, that try to work with city on things that they also feel are important. Otherwise, it just doesn't fly. So those are my comments about the process.
I'd also be interested in hearing a little bit from Commissioner Wolfer, and then there was someone else who had applied last round. If there's any just kind of immediate reactions as to kind of what it was like to apply, hear back, and kind of now being on this side. And, if there's questions that you had at the time when you originally applied for your own community initiative project, that would be helpful for us to kind of keep in mind, if you feel comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. It was it was a little confusing. It was difficult to track kind of what the status was. Mayor Pro Tem at the time was incredibly helpful. And you know, I would email him my questions, but I think that the scoring and the process with the scoring kind of, I mean, it was a little opaque from, you know, the perspective of an applicant. But yeah, that was basically it. And then it was, you know, I think that our project was sort of really like on like the kind of like at a borderline. And so whether it had moved, you know, to the next round, whether it was getting recommended to council, that was all very confusing. So yeah, I think that the more you know, I know it's difficult to create a process of scoring and you know how to come to that agreement, but the more transparent that can be, and if there's any way, I don't know, I mean, I know it's kind of a lot of, you know, it's too much work to like be updating folks that applied, and you know they should be watching the meetings, but I was watching the meetings and still kind of was not quite sure where we had left things.
Yeah, and I think those cusp applications are really important because there were some that were just like not viable, absolutely, right? And or engineering told us we actually reviewed that intersection and it's not eligible for a such and such whatever upgrade. So there were some projects that kind of fell in that like like just completely not viable, and then there were ones that didn't score well, and then there was like that middle group that or there was like a range of opinion as to whether or not they should be funded, and so that, you know, me personally, I would also kind of want us to explore that group who has already kind of put in that application, but for whatever reason, we weren't able to get them funded. Maybe they're just, you know, invited again. Maybe that's another route with a simpler application process. But, you know, those are some of the things I'm thinking about. Any other questions or comments before we kind of just have a general gut check around, do we think we should open it up again? Right, this year at least. No. Vice or not Vice, Chris, Chris, can you remind us again? We're eventually going to get to 3 million for community initiated projects, but that's when, and then how much extra do we have to be able to increase that?
So
if we decide.
The carryover from the prior year is about $2.6 million. So we have the $2.6 million. We still got some of that's going to be spent with current projects that are on that we have ongoing. We have $2 million set aside in fiscal year 24, and then we catch up in fiscal year 25 with $6 million. So over the next 2 years, it's $8 million plus the carryover of 2.6 is about 10.6 million. And probably of the carryover, you're probably going to spend about $1 million. So true pot money for the community initiated projects that is not accounted for or earmarked for anything is about probably around 10 million.
Okay, so that's not insignificant. Okay, great. That's helpful. So Vice Chair Robin, I think, wait, before we do that, Commissioner Marshall.
Well, you were asking if we should open this up. And maybe the idea is we don't open the whole thing up, but I think we should come up with an idea of how much we want to make the community. Keep them involved with what the process is. We don't want them to forget. And as we know, some of those projects take a long time. So start on it now. And then by the time they get it resolved, we might have the money. So I would say we need to open it up. Maybe not the whole thing, but at least a portion.
Okay. And then I just want to go back to Commissioner Davis that, you know, we should also think about a subcommittee to kind of think through the details of this. So if we do decide to open up, we can identify a small subgroup to help us. Vice Chair Robin.
Yeah, thanks. I simply wanted to add to what Commissioner Marshall just said. So Chris, you give us all this great news. There's so much money here, and that's terrific. Our job is to help get it out to the public. And knowing how, excuse me, my interns are fighting. Knowing how long the process takes to put good work in place, we can make great use of the next many months before we spend a dime.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I would be advocating that we act on the suggestion from Member Davis that we get a subcommittee in place, put some great ideas into a more focused state, and bring it back to the larger group to see if it makes sense to push things further or faster.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Melissa, Evelyn, is there anything I need to keep in mind around creating a subgroup or an ad hoc group? Is it just like 3 people or 4 people? Is there like a max or anything we should be remembering? I just want to be mindful of any Brown Act violations or anything.
I know Evelyn's on standby, but not that I know of, but we will definitely get back to you guys.
Yeah, we'll check into it, Chair Soto. I believe we can create an ad hoc group. And it's different, I don't think, the rules are different for ad hoc groups than these commissions.
Yeah, okay, that'd be helpful. Linda, and I don't know if you remember, I think there was something about like our ad hoc group couldn't like last beyond maybe that first year. Like I think we were going on for too long at some point. They're like, okay, we need to nix this ad hoc group because it's been going on for like 14 months.
I'll make sure I come to the next meeting with all those rules.
Yeah. It's a short span, and I would say no more than 3 meetings or 2, just to, if you got the application out and we looked at particularly the grading criteria that you score, that would be very helpful. And then to keep in mind sort of the commitment of council, where are they spinning their wheels? And maybe we use that bucket idea, and it's parks and rec and it's streets and roads, and again, people don't, that's really important. One thing comes to mind. There was an application for ping pong tables, and the cost of that in the parks, I thought it was a great idea, but there were a lot of problems with that you have no idea, unless if you're an engineer, what it's all going to cost. So you get all kinds of money there that really is not actual cost of a project. And that kind of throws us off a whole lot. I think we have to have it vetted and really looked at and engineered, and it all just takes time. I agree with both of my colleagues that we should open the project, perhaps after we have a small committee and we really look at that application. We should maybe take a look at those people that were on those lists and take a second look at them. I don't know how you feel about that, Chairman. Some of the projects that didn't go the full run.
So I just want to summarize kind of some of the things that we're talking about. We want to look at the application. We want to look at the structure / priorities of the community initiated projects. We want to look at timing and transparency, maybe transparency / ease. I'll put this in the comments so that way everyone has some idea, but I think these would be kind of like the key questions that the subcommittee would want to be asking and trying to figure out. So at this point, I want to be mindful of time. I'm curious if there's I think we're looking for 3 or 4 people to be on this subcommittee to kind of think through the details of the community initiated projects. Maybe Cliff.
Happy to.
Yeah, I would be happy to do it since I was there before and kind of know the process.
Okay, so I saw Commissioner Futter. Commissioner Davis, did I see your hand up, or am I volunteering?
Yes, I'd be interested. Okay. No, I'd be interested.
Okay, great. 2, and then I heard a gentleman's voice, but I don't know which one.
It's Cliff. I'm happy to. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Wonderful. I think that's 3. So Linda, can I ask that you coordinate with Melissa to find some times because we'll probably want Joel there as well.
Yeah, Dawn worked
and,
with us last time.
yeah,
So
yeah,
also,
and there might be someone else in engineering that could help us too if Joel's too busy.
And even maybe Chris if he has a moment. And I would really take up Mr. Sipkin's offer of going to 1PS. I find that the best run meeting I've ever been in, with all due respect. And that would be a great place to advertise what we're doing here.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I just want to also, Commissioner Hopkins mentioned looking at examples. And I think some key examples would be looking at previous previous applications and looking at ones we funded, ones we didn't, ones that weren't viable, to help us kind of really understand how things often are kind of clumped together. I think Evelyn and I have a lot of the or some of the files, Linda. So feel free to reach out to make sure you have an access.
I have those old ones too that we can go back through. Anyway,
got it.
Okay, it's Mr. Hopkins and Miss Davis. Great.
And if there's any questions, feel free to reach out at any point.
And did Robin want to join us? Robin, you had your hand up.
I'm certainly available and interested as long as I don't break a rule.
Okay.
We're bigger now, so I think four is okay since we're a bigger commission now.
I'd say 4 for sure. Okay.
Sign me up.
Great. Okay.
We'll figure this out and get back to you.
Yeah. Thank you. And I just want to really appreciate everyone's volunteering, because before we even open it up to the community, it's several rounds of conversations, both as a commission and the subcommittee, figuring out the details of the scoring and the application. And so whether or not we even open it up, we'll probably be talking about it quite a bit this year. So thank you for working on that. Okay, that brings us to discussion items, capital projects discussion. I know Joel's not with us.
Yeah,
Chris,
Joel's on vacation, so I can talk a little bit about a couple of projects. We also have the interim Public Works Director, Lori, is here, but it will be sort of a short update because I am not skilled enough to talk about Joel's projects. But let me share my screen, and let me just tell you about our process now on these projects and what we're doing to try to make sure we give the commission good status updates. This past week, I met with Lori and Yvonne, and we went over their projects, and so they're very well aware of what they've got in front of them. Lori is getting a project manager soon, so that should help with the completion of some of her projects. Yvonne wasn't able to get a project manager this round, so she's got to put that job back out there to post, and so she's hoping to get somebody soon. But she is making some headway on some of her stuff.
And Yvonne is the Parks and Recs Director, for anyone who's not aware.
Yeah, Yvonne Wise is the Parks and Rec Director. So let me just go here to our project list and talk a little bit about a couple of projects that I know are in play and new updates for this meeting. So this is Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein actually gave this. We diverted some money from another project to go to the downtown amphitheater. Yvonne, the Parks Director, has referred this to her Parks Ad Hoc Committee, and they are going to discuss what we can do with the $750,000 and bring that to the commission. So in the parks, just so the commission knows, in the Parks and Rec area, most of the projects go before the ad hoc committee. They get discussed, and then the ad hoc committee will present their findings, their recommendations to the Parks Commission, and then the Parks Commission recommendations then will come to Measure J and then eventually go to the council. So it's a little bit lengthy process in the Parks and Rec area, but Yvonne is doing a good job of keeping things moving. So that's the update on the—
Chris, real quick, the ad hoc, is that members of their commission, or is it other, can you just—
Yeah, so it's other, it's not members of the commission, it's other residents, I believe. I forget. Okay. I'm not real familiar with the concept of the ad hoc committee is really new to me. So I do have to get my rules down and make sure that we're abiding by the rules, and I'll come back with that next meeting for sure.
Okay.
And then the other project I want to update you on is here, this IT project. It's called Keyless Entry Phase 2. So what it is, it's basically badge entry to city buildings. Phase 2 is all of the fire stations and the fire training center. They're hoping to go to council with a proposal on that on November the 9th. They say they've got plenty of funds here to complete the project. So we don't have to come back before the commission here to get anything approved. So they should be able to go to council and get that project awarded. And then hopefully they will complete it within the next 3 or 4 months. And then that's really all I had on, a couple of more parks projects, these park benches and pavilion landscaping. These were before my time, and Joel wasn't here to see if he remembers exactly what this was. So we're going to go back and get some more information on exactly what was requested here. And then we'll know a little bit more about what we can do and how quickly we can get these projects completed. And I believe that will do it for my update. A lot of these community initiated projects are in play and they're being worked, and contracts are getting in place. So the swim center locker rooms, along with the fencing at the pool and the pavilion, those are in play, designs in process. So they're well underway and should be completed within a few months. On the hiking trail maintenance and the trailhead signage, I can't remember the name of the business that, or the nonprofit that does this on a regular basis, but one of the ideas we had is we would possibly partner with them and let them take the project. So it'd be something similar to the Mizell Center or giving money to the foundation for the wellness centers. We would cut them a check, sign the agreement with them, and let them put the trailhead signage in the trail and do any trail maintenance that needs to be done. But that was an idea for that project. So the main thing I just want to get to the commission is next meeting, Joel will be here, Lori will be here, and Yvonne will be at the meeting, and we can really discuss heavily any of the commission's questions on any of these projects. We'll have all the players that are in works here to discuss the projects in detail. We do meet ahead of time. Ahead of this meeting next month, Joel, Lori, and Yvonne and I will meet and update the status of every project, and we'll be ready to answer any questions in detail if we have the answers on all of these projects at our next meeting. Now, I will open it up, and if Lori, if you have anything you would like to discuss on the projects, I'll give you the floor if you want it.
Thanks, Chris. I probably don't have anything different to add. I have a lot more detail on the ones that are being kind of loosely labeled as in the works. And we are trying to compile all the information. We made a little bit of headway in some of them, but generally there's the projects when they come to us don't have a very detailed scope. And so we spend quite a bit of time and energies and need to do more of that, talking to various user groups or the requesters who put in the suggested project to identify precisely what they're trying to accomplish and determine the sufficiency of the budgets for them. And there you have it.
Yeah, I'm happy that Lori's here. She's had a lot to do these last few months, and for her to take on these projects and get them scope developed and start working them is I really appreciate it. I'm sure the commission does too. So thank you, Lori, for attending. And
thank you.
We will absolutely get more in depth on the projects next month.
Great. Yeah, Lori, thank you for coming. Public Works is a key partner in all this. I have a couple of questions both for Lori and Chris, but before I jump in, as I want to do, any questions or for any of our staff? Lori, I had a quick question around Victoria Park. Does the timeline seem to be on track, or can you give any sense as to how that playground replacement is looking? And we had put money, like the money that we were originally going to do for the shade ended up getting coupled in with that playground replacement, but you know, it has been closed for quite a while. And I know when that's done, Duluth is supposed to get replaced. So I'm just kind of curious as to, does the timeline still seem on track?
That's a classic example of a multi-layered project because you're right. You've identified two. The third one is we're doing a turf conversion project simultaneously. And we needed to get partway through the design of the turf conversion so that we could identify areas where the grass would remain and where the play structure should go. And then it's a question of kind of which goes first as far as the physical construction goes. And do we lump it all in one project, do it all at once, or do we do it in pieces? So long story short, we've got 3 different time schedules going, and we have not yet made final decisions on how it's going to be accomplished. However, the equipment is, I'd have to check with Yvonne for sure, but I believe the equipment has actually been ordered. So we are making progress, and we hope to be done probably within the year.
Oh, wow. Another year from now. Okay.
Okay. Again, it depends on the order in which we do things and whether or not, if we wait for if the project is defined as all 3 elements, then I would say, yes, it's going to be a year. The turf conversion is supposed to be done by the end of June, and there's just different deadlines.
I guess I would ask, when do we think the playground's opening up again?
Oh, for crying out loud. That's a very reasonable question, and I wish I could answer it, but I would be making up information, and I've learned not to do that. So stay tuned. We will be back to you next month with lots more information.
Okay, that would be great.
Answer that question.
Great, yeah. And then I was wondering, as you guys are kind of thinking through what's the best way to kind of do updates to the commission from, I'm wondering if we could have, like, in between, maybe after, right before, right after status, like department lead or something, because some things are clearly, you know, the timeline is dependent on the Parks and Rec process, or some things might be completely dependent on Public Works or engineering. And I recognize that there's a lot of interdependency between the 3, but didn't know if that would be something that we could do, Chris, or some way we can kind of identify, like, who is the staff that might be the one with the most answers on a given project.
Yeah. So on our project, yeah, we can do that. Is this when like project specific questions that we would ask either Lori or Joelle or Yvonne?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. Now on the status update, we're trying to put if it's Public Works or if it's Parks or if it's if it doesn't say Public Work or Parks, it's going to be Joelle. So yeah, we can absolutely do that. We can make it part of our project update, or we can put it anywhere in the agenda that you would like.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't want you to recreate something like, you know, just maybe another column here, so that way it's not getting kind of lumped in with the status, and so that way it might be easier to kind of see it just on that. That would be awesome.
Yep, we can certainly. That's an easy thing to add.
Yeah, and totally recognize, you know, that another, you know, there might be a question or a key thing that someone else answers, but I think we've asked a lot of Joel, and he does not always, he's not privy to every single detail of every department. So
yeah, you said it right. There's a lot of collaboration between Joelle and Lori and Yvonne, and so that's why we're going to try to all get together before this meeting every month and kind of talk through some stuff so that everybody's kind of on the same page. So yes, you hit the nail on the head right there. There's a lot of collaboration.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Or Commissioner Davis, thanks for raising your hand.
Well, this is a stupid newbie question, but Chris, I'm curious,
I love them all.
The project numbers, is there a rhyme or reason to that? Is that the year that it was approved?
Exactly. So if you see like Project 1804, that was created back in 2018, and it was the 4th project that year. So you can thank our city engineer Joelle for that numbering process.
Yeah.
So when you see something that says 2017 something, you're wondering, why is it taking so long? Yeah, some of those projects out there for back in 2017. So, but he's working through them. He's working through them for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Good point. Okay. If that is, hold on, I always forget the last additional. So I think that's it for our capital projects discussion. Any closing commission member comments or requests? Things
Yes.
to keep in mind for next. Yes, Commissioner Marshall.
I just wonder, I think everybody got an invitation and we talked about myself, but the ribbon cutting is from 10 to 11 on November 2nd. And I would encourage you, especially maybe the new members, to see a really great project. It turned out very good.
Oh, thank you so much for that reminder. Yeah, November 2nd, all of our commissioners, new or old, or returning or current, is welcome to come. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
You're asked to go. By the way.
Yeah, I'll be there. Okay. All right. Well, with that, we finished 4 minutes early. Every minute is appreciated that you're with us. So I'll give you a few minutes back to your evening. And thank you so much to everyone for joining us. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Enjoy your vacation.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.